Republican Senator Mitt Romney, a man who is now a pariah among the very party that he once led a decade ago, has now announced that he will not be seeking re-election in 2024, and he is getting much more outspoken about the GOP's many, many problems as a result. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so we've got several clips to play. This is in many ways the end of an era, perhaps, for the Republican Party. This is one more major loss from the old guard that could be construed as statesmen. Mitt Romney has announced that he is not seeking re-election in 2024. He is going to serve out the remainder of his term until early 2025. But again, he's getting much more outspoken about the current state of the GOP. We've got several clips to play. Let's start with this one here.
Do you feel like this is a Republican Party that is beholden to former President Donald Trump?
Well, there's no question but that the Republican Party today is in the shadow of Donald Trump. He is the leader of the greatest portion of the Republican Party. It's a populist, I believe, demagogue portion of the party. Look, I represent a small wing of the party, if you will. I call it the wise wing of the Republican Party. And I don't believe we're going away. I think ultimately we'll see a resurgence and come back into leadership of the party. Look, my wing of the party talks about policy and about issues that will make a difference to the lives of the American people. The Trump wing of the party talks about resentments of various kind and getting even and settling scores and revisiting the 2020 election. What are the policies for the future? And my party is only going to be successful getting young people to vote for us if we're talking about the future. And that's not happening so far in that other wing.
So that's a great. There's a reason I didn't interrupt. It's a very incisive, precise description of the current iteration of the GOP packed into a minute, right? So as I've discussed before, it's simply a fact. The GOP is not a serious governing party. The Democrats have their issues, but the Democratic Party is infinitely more responsible and serious about governing and producing material benefits, not only for their constituents, but also for conservative voters. Whereas the current iteration of the GOP, they basically have two parallel prongs. They're either, as I've mentioned, obsessed with niche culture war issues like, again, what is the green M&M wearing? Is it sneakers, or is it heels, or gas stoves, or is Biden coming to take away your beers? Silly stuff like that, which produces no material benefit for the lives of their constituents. Or they're obsessed with grievances, like Donald Trump's ongoing grudge because he says the 2020 election was stolen from him. Those are not the policy discussions. Those are not about responsibly legislating and governing for the constituency. Now, I want to play another clip here in which, again, he kind of reiterates this.
And unfortunately, that's what we're hearing. And again, on the Trump wing of the party, I haven't heard policy other than saying we're going to build a wall. And by the way, he was president. He was president for 4 years. He built 50 miles. What did he get done? Or he said, well, how about the tax change? Well, the tax, that was Paul Ryan. That wasn't the Biden plan. He did, of course, he had a health care plan. Remember that? That was everybody's going to have low-cost health insurance that was fabulous. Never proposed. Never saw. He was in 4 years. So it's not a policy-centric approach. And if you don't have policy to match your rhetoric, ultimately it's not going to be successful.
So again, he tears into Trump's 4 years in office. I mean, the fact of the matter is Donald Trump didn't get much done for the American people while he was in office. Again, the only positive thing I can think of was the COVID vaccine, right? But he won't even Trump can't take credit for it because it's politically toxic for him. So Romney is absolutely correct to point this out, and also to point out that the GOP is hemorrhaging young voters because they don't take things like climate change seriously. They're trying to suppress voter turnout. They're not policy oriented towards making the lives of their constituents and the next generation better. Now, I want to turn your attention to an op-ed or it's an article in The Atlantic. Sorry, I just had a brain lapse there. It's about Romney and his decision to leave the party. And it's a very intimate discussion. And there's a great quote in that article which says, a very large portion of my party, he told the author one day, really doesn't believe in the Constitution. This is, again, the former leader of the Republican Party describing the current iteration of the Republican Party less than a decade later. This is extraordinary. Now, in response to this, Donald Trump had this to say on Truth Central about that rhino Mitt Romney. Fantastic news for America, the great state of Utah, and for the Republican Party. Mitt Romney, sometimes referred to as Pierre Delecto, will not be seeking a second term in the U.S. Senate, where he did not serve with distinction. A big primary fight against him was in the offing, but now that will not be necessary. Congrats to all. Make America great again. So obviously, Donald Trump and MAGA are celebratory in the highest possible way. Now, I want to play one more clip here. And this, again, refers to the ongoing political meta, which is about the impeachment inquiry, the formal impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Now, as a reminder, Mitt Romney is not in the House of Representatives, so he would not vote on impeachment or participate in the impeachment inquiry anyway. That's the other chamber. But if it does proceed to an impeachment, the trial would be held in the Senate, and Mitt Romney would be one of the jurists as a member of the Senate. This is what he has to say on that.
I haven't heard any allegation of something that would rise to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor. I think it'd be very unusual to actually see a referral of impeachment. I don't expect that to happen. They can inquire and see if there's evidence that shows something else. I don't think they'll find that. I don't know. But there's been no allegation of that. And any hint of that has been denied by the president. So I'm not expecting that to occur.
So the last thing I'll say is this. There's going to be the temptation, as is the case with Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and other prominent Republicans who have divorced, so to speak, themselves or emancipated themselves from the cult of Donald Trump. I'm not going to do that with Mitt Romney. I haven't done that with them, and I won't do it with Mitt Romney. Now, I will say, I do think Mitt Romney is a statesman in that obviously there are substantive policy disagreements that I have with Mitt Romney. But I do think they are sincerely held, and I do think at the end of the day he values the perpetuation of the republic, even if it means empowering Democrats. Like he was one of the few who voted to convict Donald Trump of impeachment, I think twice, I think in the Ukraine one and also in the January 6th impeachment as well. He's been an outspoken critic. I do think that he is a statesman, and that's why him leaving office is going to be in some ways the end of an era. It's the same thing. It's kind of similar to what I've said about Mitch McConnell. Bear with me here. Mitch McConnell is infinitely more bad faith and corrupt and dangerous. As a matter of fact, that Atlantic article that I just referenced has quite a bit to say from Mitt Romney's perspective about Mitch McConnell. But I do think, like, you know how Mitch McConnell is not wanting to preside over the absolute disintegration of the republic? I think that's part of the reason why he is so desperate to cling to power, because he wants to see the GOP past its Trump phase. Mitt Romney, I think even more so, and more sincerely, less cynically. But Mitt Romney, at the end of the day, voted to, block the expanded child tax credit. That's like one example. I mean, this is not a man who, has great policy ideas. But the absence of him as a crucial part of whatever is left of the GOP's conscience, that's not good news for the party. And I would argue to some extent it's not good news for the country, because to whatever extent Mitt Romney was a check on the party's excesses, and clearly not much of one, now after 2025, there will be even less of that. My hope is that now that Romney has made the public decision not to run for re-election, he can then fully embrace even more his identity as a statesman and hopefully work even more bipartisanly and more robustly with President Biden and the Democrats to further work against the MAGA fascistic cult. That's what I'm hoping, and I don't know if that's going to happen, but we will continue to track the remainder of Mitt Romney's political career and hope that, again, he embraces that statesman persona.